What should you have in your circle time area? If you're a new teacher, these things are often a mystery. And if you're a seasoned veteran, you're probably wondering what everybody else has in their circle time area, so you can get some new ideas. Whichever one describes you, you're in the right place, because in today's episode of Elevating Early Childhood, I'll be sharing my circle time makeover. Listen, it's no secret that circle time can be very tricky, and I get lots of questions all year long about circle time. Mostly I get asked, why can't my kids sit still and listen? But I like to reframe that thinking and instead focus on what I'm doing that could be improved on to help my children increase attention and focus during circle time. Now, keep watching and listening until the very end, because not only am I going to share my circle time makeover, I'm also going to share what didn't make the cut, so you can avoid those pitfalls too. So first things first, I want to talk about seating. Yes, seating, not as in desks or chairs or anything like that, but seating for the students. Where will they be sitting? How will they be sitting? And the teachers' seating as well. So there are a lot of different schools of thought on this, but I like to think of children, right? Children that are between the ages of 3, 4, and 5, getting them to sit in front of you in a designated spot can be very difficult, right? It looks so easy. You see it on TV, it looks so easy. You see other teachers do it, it looks so easy. It is not easy. If it looks easy, that's because it's been practiced, right, by that teacher and those children. So what I like to think of is there's like a good, better, and best way to do everything, right? So I don't assign any spots to children. I think that is just one more choice that gets removed from them. Like they don't have the opportunity to make a choice when we assign seats for them. I think it's more about knowing who does and who doesn't mix well with each other, and then strategically placing students or inviting them to different places. Rather than saying you have to sit here and you have to sit here, because children are always going to gravitate to their spot. It happens to us during professional development training, right? We go in, we put our bags down, we get ready for our professional development training, and then at some point during the day, the instructor will change everyone's groups up because they like to do that for some reason. And what happens when you're done with that group work? Where do you go? Right back where you were before, right? We are creatures of habit, and so are children. And I find that most children will gravitate towards a spot that they seem to prefer. Why not let them? So how do you do that though? How do you get them in at least the same area? Because some of us have large classes. We have to utilize every single place that we have on our carpet or a rug in front of us, and others have much smaller classes. So how do we get it so that the kids are in the general localized right area? And one of the ways I've done it over the years, because I didn't have a budget, right? Public school, was putting some kind of a marker on the floor. Once children have chosen their spots, or I've invited them in some cases, then I put little spots on their floor with their name. Now, in my case, we didn't have sit spots until very recently, right? Those are those little Velcro type circles that will stick to fancy carpets. So they're available to write on one side, but they're sticky on the other, is sticky as in Velcro like. And they're different colors, different shapes, and they're very easy to find on Amazon. And you can just pop those down on the carpet and the kids can find their spot. Any opportunity that I have during the day in my classroom to have students identify their name in print, I'm going to take that opportunity. So having their names in print is really just a sneaky way. It's like the veggies in the mac and cheese to get them to recognize their name. I will tell you, this works very effectively. If their name is on everything in the classroom that belongs to them or indicates that this is their place, they will learn their names and the letters much more quickly this way. So having some place on the floor. I didn't have sit spots, so I used actual painter's tape or masking tape. Did it get to be a sticky mess by the end of the year? Yes. Did I bring my own steam cleaner in to clean the carpet? Yes, I did that too. But it is it is effective if you can use it. Now, some schools are not going to allow that, right? But so having their names on a little spot on the floor with tape, that's perfectly fine. Having like a sit spot or something a little bit fancier, that's good. I think the best method, though, is to have an actual cushion or seat of some sort, right? And I'm talking about, when I'm talking about a seat, I'm talking about a cushion that they sit on. So I'm sharing on the screen here with you now some of my favorite seats that I just found recently. That I got these at Target, but there are similar ones available on Amazon, which I will link in the show notes below. Click expand more so you can read the full description and find the links to anything I mention. So these seats help children identify their place in space. And one thing we know about little kids is they don't really know their place in space yet. They're always bumping around, touching each other, getting into other people's personal space. They just don't have that feeling yet, right? So having this cushion of some sort that is actually a physical thing that they can touch and feel really helps keep them in their spot, if you will. Now, I was gifted a set with little nubs on them one time for sensory input. Those are great if you can get your hands on them. They were a little pricey. These cushions that I just shared with you on the screen are less pricey than the others, I believe. It really depends on how thrifty of a shopper you are and how eager you are to get your hands on them. I will say that it's definitely not the cheapest option, and that's why I always went with tape, because it's what was cheap and what was available to me. But if you have a budget or a wish list, if you do a donor's choose, then I really love these types of spots. It's very easy for a kid to tell if they're in their spot or not in their spot. They're also easily picked up and moved. You do need a little bit of space to stack them up at the end of your circle time or whatever it is, and that may be an issue for some people. So keep that in mind when looking for seating. Another thing that I mentioned was the teacher's seating. The teacher's seating is just as important as the children's seating. I will tell you this from experience, that when I was a young teacher, sitting on the floor was no big deal. And I sat on the floor with my kids for probably the first 6 years that I taught. Then I got a little older and I said, maybe a chair would be good, right? So I moved to a chair. I had a director's chair for 20 years, probably close to 20 years, 15 years probably. I had a director's chair, not the really tall ones, the ones that sit at a regular height, only because I was able to buy different colorful panels for them, right? You could choose your color, pattern, whatever. And so I would get a new sling or fabric every couple of years. That's great. So that's why I did that. And that worked for me. Other people I see use these really fancy, from the teacher store, stools with wheels. Those are really cool because they have storage in them. Like that's like the ultimate. So good, better, best. A good is, well, it depends on how old you are, really. The best would be sitting on the floor, I guess, because you're at their eye level. But that's not a choice for all of the teachers out there, right? So if that's not an option for you, then I would say that having a comfortable chair for you, right? Because if you're uncomfortable during circle time, you're not going to give your best to your students. So that's why I liked the director's chairs too. They had a nice arm on them. So sometimes I would put a book there or rest my elbow if I was using the puppet, whatever. It was very clear, and the kids absolutely loved to sit in that chair when they were playing teacher during center time. And so sometimes I took pictures of them sitting in the chair. That was a lot of fun. But seating for you is important too, whatever feels most comfortable to you. And yeah, I think that having seating for the teacher and the students is really important, and that's the very basic way to start. So next up is our visual picture schedule, right? This is your daily routine in pictures. Now, you can make your own. We also have one in our shop that you can edit the words, right? Only in English, I'm sorry. And they are super helpful for a variety of reasons. Number one being that it helps your children feel safe and secure in the classroom. They need to know what comes next. So I want you to think, whether it was just a few days ago or a few months ago, What happens on the first day of school? You'll have kids who cry because they what? They want to see their family, right? Well, when you have a picture schedule and you start using it on the first day, because it is not decor, I've said it a million times, I'm going to say it 1,000,001 times, a picture schedule is for you and the students to use every single day of the year. Even when you think they don't need it anymore, they still need it, because they might not need it to track the passage of time, but they need it to still feel safe and secure, because without it, they feel like they still don't know what comes next, because they're still thinking in pictures at that age, right? So number one reason you want to have that out on day one is to point to it and say, right now I'm reading a story, and you point to the first thing on the list, could be morning meeting, circle time, whatever you call it, and then we're going to do this, this, and this, and then we're going to go home. So the one I have pictured here is for a half day, but we have tons and tons of pictures inside of the daily picture schedule that you can choose from. So if you're a full day, there's plenty there for both public and private schools. Another thing that the picture schedule does is it helps children understand the passage of time in pictures. And when I say passage of time, I'm not talking about the clock, right? I'm talking about the executive function skills of understanding that there's this much time. Here I'm holding my hands far apart until we go home. And then there's only this much time. I'm holding my hands closer. And now we're almost ready to go home. There's only one more thing. So as you're moving your marker down on the picture schedule or over, we have a vertical and a horizontal picture schedule. It's getting closer to the end. So they're visually marking that passage of time to the end, right? That's really important for developing executive function skills in young children. And another executive function skill that the daily visual picture schedule helps support is organizing their day. Organizational skills are a critical part of executive function skills, and visual organization will help them do that. So they're visually seeing how the day is organized. First this, then that, then this, then that, then this, then that. This visual organization is really going to help them as they start to visualize other routines in their life, right? We get up, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, we put on our clothes, we brush our hair, things like that. Daily routines in their life. Eventually, once they get all of that down, they can transition that to the rest of their lives, right? You and I know that we're like, okay, so first I have to go to Target, and then I have to go to the dog groomer, and then I have to go pick my kids up from school. Like, we also have schedules in our daily lives, right? And we're transitioning that knowledge that we gained, hopefully in preschool, but for some of us not. We're transferring that knowledge to our daily lives, and then it transfers into their work lives, right? Okay, first I have to get that report for Miss Bradley, and then I have to email so-and-so, and then I have to go to a meeting at 10 o'clock with so-and-so. The list goes on. This helps them in their work life as well. It helps them when they go to college, right? What do I have to do? I'm going to have to get up and do these things, go to this class, that class. I'm going to have to go and get my meal card for the cafeteria. I'm going to have to, this, that, and the other thing. So daily picture schedules at the preschool level are setting your students up for success for the rest of their lives. And they're used all day long, every day. And each time we transition from one piece of the schedule to another, we move the visual clip or whatever you use to indicate this is the time we are currently in. That's crucial. Just having it up on the wall does not mean that it's effective. You have to have some kind of indicator of where we are in the day in order for the children to understand what comes next. So if you don't have a clothespin or some kind of marker to show visually what time or what step of the day that we're in, then it's not going to be as effective. Next up are my pointers. Now, I found this pointer holder. It's a magnetic pointer holder. I found it at the Container Store, right? And the minute I saw it, I knew that this was the answer to all of my circle time problems. Not really a problem, but I always had a little like metal planter stand next to my director's chair. And in that stand were pointers, right? And then during center time, the kids could take a pointer and pretend to play teacher. But my personal pointers, the ones that I really liked to use myself during circle time to point to things, were also in that mix. And I don't know about you, but I'm just a tad germophobic. And so touching those pointers after all the little grubby hands had been on them was kind of like, ew, David. So I like to have just a few pointers that are just for me. And now I can put them on my circle time board, if you have a magnetic one, that is. And it just attaches. It's just a white, like almost like a PVC cylinder with a very strong magnet on the back. And in the picture that I showed on screen, for those of you watching along, there were 3 wooden pointers. They came from Target a couple years ago, so I don't think they have them available right now, but I really like the finger pointers that you can get from Dollar Tree. Those are awesome, and I would usually have one of those as my pointer too. So that pointer thing was a game changer for me for circle time, because now I have them right there. I know they're always there. Because when I used the planter stand, there were always pointers missing because somebody had misplaced them, air quotes, somewhere in the classroom. And I really needed my special pointer every day. Another thing that pointers are great for, not just because we like them or we want to keep our own away from the children, but using big books. If you use big books, you can point to the words. If you're following our Trailblazer curriculum and you're doing a different nursery rhyme every week or every 2 weeks, you're definitely going to want to use your pointer as you point to each word in the rhyme, whether that's on the poster or the pocket chart, sentences, whichever one you prefer. I'm also going to use pointers to indicate how many students are here today. Whether you do that, there's a variety of different ways to do that, but I like to use student name cards with pictures in a pocket chart or a poster. I don't have one here on the board because it is off to the side. Not everything has to be directly in front of them. So I have this poster off to the side. We can turn our head and look at it while we count how many children are here and how many are not. So that's another way to use it. You can also use it for any other type of a thing that you might point to, like birthdays or things like that, on your board. So for those of you who've watched or listened to any of the previous 110 episodes of Elevating Early Childhood, you will know that I'm a big proponent of songs and finger plays during circle time. So much so, in fact, that I would have to say you're not really having circle time if you don't have songs or finger plays. So in this case, on the screen, we are showing you here the different ways that I have these finger plays and songs displayed because I want children to be able to choose them. I truly believe that giving kids a choice anytime you can is the way to go. It helps them feel in control. And little kids don't feel in control very often, right, in their lives. So I feel like it's my job to give them choices throughout the day so that they can feel that sense of success and independence. So here we have craft sticks, or popsicle sticks as we call them here in the US, with pictures to indicate each rhyme or song that I have available in the beginning of the year. So these pictures on sticks will change throughout the year, but right now I've got 2 little red birds, Wheels on the Bus, Itsy Bitsy Spider, and Sticky Bubblegum. I think those are the 4. So those are the choices that I have in this little magnetic holder on the screen there. So I just printed the pictures, taped them to my popsicle stick, and stuck them in this little magnetic holder, which is linked in the video description below. And then when it's time to sing a song or a finger play, any one of those 5 is acceptable to me. The children can come up and select one. I'll ask one child to come up and can you choose a song for us to sing, right? And now we might not have time for more than 2 one day. And the next day we've got extra time, so we'll have time for 4. It just depends on the day and the time. And you can use these throughout the day as well if you want for time fillers or transitions or whatever. But I'd like to have those right up on the board. I have found that if I put them on a ring and put them in my book basket or whatever I have for my teacher supplies, I'll forget about it. I like this right in your face type of a scenario with everything on the board, because then I won't forget it and the kids won't forget it either. Because if I put them on a ring and put them in my little box or basket, the kids can't see them either and they might forget as well. So I truly believe in the power of songs and rhymes. My session at the summit this year was all about songs and rhymes and why they're so important in early childhood education. Now that brings me to linear calendar, and this is, I think, one of the most kid-friendly and age-appropriate ways to do quote-unquote calendar in the preschool classroom. So again, if you've watched my videos, you know that I'm not a proponent of the traditional calendar that goes from left to right and then sweeps back again. So left to right directionality and then the return sweep. That's not a natural process for a preschooler, for most preschoolers, in fact. And it also doesn't show the progression over time of the numbers in a left to right directionality, right? It goes back and forth. And so the natural thing that they do is they go to the end of the line. So let's say it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Saturday, and then you sweep back to 7 for Sunday. And instead, they'll go all the way over and then down and back again. And it's almost like a maze, right? And that's not actually how we count or follow a calendar. So I like the linear version. It's very easy to understand. We start at 1 and we go all the way over to 31. And each day is one more than the last, right? And so it's growing in progression over time. I'll put a link below. We do have the linear calendar in my shop as well. Link in the description box below. Click expand to see more. And it's down there. I will say that this was one of the best things we ever did in the classroom when we implemented linear calendar many, many years ago. It was so effective, in fact, that a lot of us stopped using the traditional calendar. Now, the program that we used at the time had a traditional and a linear, but we really didn't feel the need to use the traditional as much because this was so much more effective in a linear fashion. So in this particular case, we have the numbers across the bottom in a left to right directionality, 1 at the start, 31 at the end, and then little cards that go over the top of each day to indicate home or school. This is so helpful. This is another visual way that your kids can see, these days I'm here, these days I'm not. That is so helpful. I can't tell you the number of times parents have said to me, prior to me using the linear calendar, he was so sad when he woke up on Saturday and he realized he wasn't coming here. You know, the kids don't understand that passage of time just yet. So the linear calendar really helps that. And then, of course, if you have birthdays or something exciting coming up, like you're going to be going on a field trip or there's going to be a popcorn day or whatever it is coming up, you can count down to it. So I would put it over top of the number on the calendar that it's going to be on, right? And then we would say, okay, today we're on September 2nd. Now on the 10th, we're going to have XYZ, field trip, popcorn party, whatever. Let's count how many more days until we have that. That's right. These are sleep days. We have 2 sleep days and 5 school days until this thing or whatever. And birthdays, it's really fun too because kids, they love to count down to their friends' birthdays and their own birthdays as well. So I personally have seen tremendous growth with young children when using the linear calendar. A lot of teachers complain that it's too big, that they don't have enough space to display it. On the screen behind me, you can see that I have the linear calendar displayed. I shrunk it in my printer, right? It's shrunk down, but it's not so small that my kids can't see it on the carpet area. So I always put it at the very bottom of my whiteboard. And on the screen here, I ran it through my Xyron machine, that's Xyron, with magnetic tape on the back. So there's a magnetic tape cartridge that you can get to go inside your Xyron. And then you run it through. It's like a cold laminator. It doesn't take any power. You just stick the cartridge in, you turn the crank. Well, this is old-fashioned here. Turn the crank, and then it will, you put things through it just like you would a laminator as you crank it through. And then it comes out, and it has magnetic tape on the back, like a very thin, flexible version. So it adheres to the paper, and then it's covered on top with like laminating film. And that's what I did with the linear calendar behind me. I printed it at half size, and then I ran it through my magnetic tape in the Xyron machine. And now all the pieces of my linear calendar are magnetized. So I keep the numbers up, and then I just add the little squares with the pictures of the school day or the home day or the birthdays or any of the special days above those numbers that are coming up, so the kids can count down. And there's also little headers there that tell you what month it is. So just for exposure, not for any other reason. And now that brings me to some of the things that you may have noticed I don't have that haven't appeared on the screen. And so there are some things that I have that, like I said, are not included on the board, but I still have them. You just can't see them here. And some of these things are the bookshelf, right? So there's a cute little magnetic shelf that I also found at the Container Store that fits a picture book perfectly, right? So having my book of the day on that little shelf, like my Circle Time book, is so helpful to me because I don't have to dig for it. I usually have the books pulled for the entire week, and I have them in a little basket with some of my props and things, but actually taking it out and putting it on the shelf each day is a great way to get kids interested in the story before you've even read it. So I have that in there as well. It's not mandatory, but it's just something I thought was really cool. You could also put other things on there as well. You could put a timer, whatever you want. I also have a class puppet, and that class puppet is off to the side on a shelf above the children's reach, out of their reach, that I can grab and use when I need it. So it's not on my board, but it is nearby. Another thing that you can't see here is my center planning board. So what I usually do is I have that directly below my whiteboard. So I will print it out in like a rectangular fashion, right? Or I will create it in a rectangular fashion and put it under the board, because it doesn't need to take up a whole lot of real estate. It doesn't need to be part of my Circle Time routine. It is there. So that's why you can't see it. Now, another thing I wanted to mention, if you're watching along, is that where I'm sitting right now, this is my recording area, right? This is my recording room in my home. So this particular area that I'm sitting in right now is not in my classroom. So therefore, I had to move it up so it would be at your eye level, right, on the screen. So this is not how I would have it set up in the classroom as far as the height. So I would try to have it lower, because right now if they're sitting on the floor, they're looking up way too high to see this board, right? Because it's more at my waist height. So you would probably have a board a bit lower, because we want things to be at kids' eye level or slightly above. So we don't want them tilting their heads way back like that. And one last thing you can't see, it's my Who is Here Today pocket chart. So when the kids come in every morning, they get their name card, they put it in the pocket chart. There's a picture of home, a picture of school. And then we review this during a Circle Time by counting the number of children who are here and the number of children who are not. So that is also included, but it's in a pocket chart form off to the side as well. So that brings me to the not this portion. So we talked about the things that are important to have in your Circle Time area. And now we're going to talk about the things that are not important to have. And the first one is alphabet posters. Now, this is a very unpopular opinion, and I get that, because alphabet posters in the Circle Time area is one of those things that we've always done, and I'm using air quotes here. We've always done because we've always done it that way, right? But I really encourage you to break out of that mindset, because posters don't teach anything, right? Posters are decoration, right? Now, you can do things with those posters, But I don't think plastering them on the wall during circle time is the most effective way to use them or the most effective way to quote unquote teach letters. And of course, I also believe that less is more when it comes to circle time. So if your entire circle time area is nothing but paper touching each other, the whole area, that's too much. That's when you know that's too much, right? On the other hand, I do know that some of you work in programs where having the alphabet up on the wall in your classroom is required. And that's okay too. Have them up on the wall somewhere else. So one of the things I did in one of the classrooms I had, well, several of the classrooms I had over the years, was I'm here against the wall for circle time, and then there's usually a wall to my left and a wall to my right. Maybe they're not close. Maybe they're somewhat close. It just depends on how your room is organized. But in some of the classrooms I was in, we had a nice wall off to one side, and that's where I would put the alphabet line at their eye level. And so I could refer to it when we were doing our circle time routine by saying, oh, look, today our leader of the day is Emily. Emily starts with this letter. What's this letter? E. That's right. Where would we put the E? Where does the E go? Over here under the number line, because I would usually have pictures under there of the students' names, right? Their name card. And so we could go and we could look at the E. We can put her name card under there and say, oh yes, that's an E for Emily. Like, we're going to reference it, but it's not going to be like the be all end all of my circle time, right? So it doesn't have to be plastered on the wall. And if you need alphabet posters with real photos, you can find those in my shop as well, linked in the description below. The next one, and this is not going to surprise you if you listen to the last one, this is number posters. So posters with the numbers or just identifying the numeral is not actually math, right? The real math skills that kids need to learn in preschool are much more complex than just the numbers. Things like number sense, subitizing, patterning, one-to-one correspondence. These are all the meat and potatoes of math in the preschool classroom. And numbers are just the icing on the cake, but they're not going to help kids learn real math skills. Like, real math skills are learned during small group and center time instruction, right? They are with hands-on manipulatives and materials, because being able to identify the number 5 without being able to count it, right, with one-to-one correspondence isn't going to be helpful to anybody, not you or the students. So therefore, number posters, you can have them in your classroom just to make it look like a classroom to most people, but they are not a necessary requirement for circle time. You already have them on your linear calendar, so there's no need, in my personal opinion, to have them elsewhere. And again, we have number posters in the shop. And number 3 on the not this portion of the podcast is a very unpopular opinion, and that is reciting the days of the week and the months of the year or the date. So everybody out there that's been on the internet for 2 minutes has seen the viral pictures of the magnetic curtain rod with book rings and the month, the day, the date, and the year, right? And you flip them over. Good for them. Good for those teachers. They teach older grades. Bless their hearts. We don't teach that age level because those things are not appropriate for preschoolers. Seeing the month, the day, the date, and the year in print on the board, that's just like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? Wah, 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 wah. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of that? That to preschoolers means absolutely nothing. And don't even get me started when people say, well, I have to prepare them for next year. As Karen Cox says, Karen, if you're listening, I'm going to quote you on that until the day you die, or the day I die, rather. And that is, we don't prepare children for inappropriate expectations, right? Just because that is being done in the next grade doesn't make it appropriate, right? So we don't prepare children for these things that they're not ready for just because they're doing it in the next grade level, or they're going to have to do it later. We have to teach the children that are in front of us right now, and that's not where they're at. That's not going to help them be a better reader, a better writer, be better at math, social emotional skills, executive function skills, none of the above. And anybody can quote me on that. Anybody can stitch that. That is the honest truth. So shower curtain or whatever those are, towel rods, magnetic towel rods on the board with little flip rings, goodie for them. That is something that the older grades do. You don't need to worry about that. Save yourself some time and some money, and don't do that. We're also not going to recite the days of the week, the months of the year, any of those types of things. Those are just not going to further the goals of preschool, because we're not grading children on the days of the week, the months of the year. They're not ready for that type of a thing at the preschool level. Can they learn it? They can. But is it the best use of their time? No. It's not going to help them be a better reader, a better writer, better at math. All of the things I said before. The days of the week and the months of the year are not going to do that. Those words are much too large for them to even know in kindergarten. So why are we working on them in preschool? Like, no, just no. But, that's a big but, birthdays are something that are meaningful to young children. So let's take the whole, some religions don't celebrate birthdays. Let's put that aside for a moment and just focus on birthdays are meaningful to young children. And so therefore, I do have birthday bags. And this is one of the ways that we can make these things meaningful to children. So I have a bag. Each month of the year has this little tiny gift bag, this little itty bitty gift bag, like you'd put a gift card in there, right? And I have put some labels on the front. If I can find the link, I know they exist, I'll put it in the show notes below. I wasn't able to find it today though. And then, I think it's in the birthday bundle. That's where it is. And then I have these cute little people sticks. That's something extra you don't have to have. Craft sticks work just fine. And I put their little pictures on them, and I stuff the bags with colorful tissue. Now remember, this is my recording area. This isn't my classroom. So I have the bright colors there to attract your attention, not the children. So if this were my own classroom, I would probably have not the rainbow border or the rainbow things next to me here. I would probably choose to do that differently. But when you're recording a video for the public, then you do want to make it colorful. So having said that, the birthday bags, colorful tissue inside, little popsicle sticks with the kids' pictures and their names. And then we can talk about, oh, it's March. Now in March, we have these birthdays, and I take the bag down and I pull the little sticks out. We look at the people, and on the stick, I've also written the date, the exact date. So it says February on the bag, and on the stick, it might say 2-17. So February 17th is this child's birthday with the picture on top, right? So then I'll go to the linear calendar. I'll find February 17th, and I'll put the little birthday cake over the top of that number to remind me that that is so-and-so's birthday. So we do that every month at the beginning of the month to mark the birthdays on the linear calendar. So those things are meaningful. So if you want to talk about months of the year during that time and the days of the week, like the 17th, that's going to be a Thursday. So Thursday, February 17th is Marco's birthday. Like that's an appropriate way to do that, right? That's a way that's meaningful to children. So there you have it. That is my Circle Time Makeover. I hope you were inspired by something in this episode. And if you liked what you saw or heard, I hope that you will subscribe to my YouTube channel or on iTunes. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin, Onward and Upward. Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, then I invite you to explore all that my Teaching Trailblazers program has to offer. Inside, you'll have access to time-saving resources, top-notch trainings, and expert advice that will transform your teaching experience. The curriculum, resources, activities, and printables inside cover everything from literacy and math to social emotional development and fine motor skills, ensuring that your little learners grow and thrive all year long. You'll find more than 70 professional development trainings that will help you do everything from handling tough conversations with parents to teaching specific literacy skills and even improving circle time, plus much more. Visit teachingtrailblazers.com to learn more, apply, and get started on your journey to teaching better, saving time, and living more. I'll see you on the inside.